The truth hurts, and for some, that means trying to stifle the disseminators of truth, such as Rabbi David Bar-Hayim and former prisoner of Zion, Yehonathan Pollard. But, as one commenter commented today about Yehonathan, for any one person who wishes you evil, there are hundreds who value your presence and your words of wisdom. Welcome, Yehonathan.
Thank you.
Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom and welcome to one and all, and particularly to my friend and interlocutor, Jonathan Pollard.
Hello.
Less than 48 hours ago, Israeli Special Forces conducted a very successful, very daring and very successful hostage release operation, during the course of which two Israeli hostages who had been held in Gaza since the invasion of Israel on Shmini Atzeret, on the 7th of October 2023, according to the Gregorian calendar. They had been held and were being held in it should be pointed out, this is relevant, in a so-called uninvolved civilian home. It was not in some Hamas stronghold. It was not underground. It was in an apartment inhabited by residents of the Gaza Strip, so-called non-combatants, the kind of people that we are constantly told we must not harm and we must protect. It turns out that such people, and this is not the first time this has become clear and apparent to all, but it has been demonstrated once again, these kinds of people, in many cases, not only are holding on to these prisoners at the present time, but they were in fact the people who kidnapped them in the first place. In other words, to explain what I'm getting at, it took a very, very long time for our enemies, the Hamas, which is one of many enemies that we have. It took a very long time for Hamas to respond to the news of this commando raid and the rescue of these hostages. When they finally did, one was one of the heads and one of the spokesmen of Hamas in Gaza, and the other was a representative of Hamas in Lebanon. And they both said, and this is the point, that I'm not suggesting they were lying, or not completely lying at any rate, which would also be a first perhaps, but they said, well, we're not involved. We had nothing to do with these hostages. We didn't kidnap them in the first place. These were their words, not mine. These people were kidnapped by civilians here in Gaza, and they were being held by these same people, and we had nothing to do with the entire operation. We didn't kidnap them, and we weren't holding them. And therefore, the successful raid of the Israelis has nothing to do with us. You can claim that this was just putting a brave face on an embarrassing situation. There might be some truth to that. You could also accept, as I do, that at least part of what they were saying is factually true. We actually have video footage of so-called non-combatant, uninvolved, non-Hamas civilians invading the country, crossing the border fence on that first day of the war, and perpetrating unspeakable atrocities and taking away Israelis that they kidnapped, that they took hold of. We actually have this on video. It cannot be denied. So it's very, very likely that at least some of what these Hamas spokesmen were saying was actually true. Now, in the wake of this brilliant commando operation, we have, I understand, a confirmation of something that you, Jonathan, and others have spoken about for some time, and that I refer to the French and Qatari promises with regards to supplying medications to hostages. Could you elaborate about this?
Part of the deal was that in exchange for medication for the civilians, so to speak, in Gaza, the innocent civilians, that our own hostages in Gaza would be provided with medical, with drugs. And the French and the Qataris were guarantors of that deal. And it was apparently broken on the minute the medication was delivered.
You're referring to the first hostage deal?
No, this last one, where medication was promised, that we had to get medication, try to get medication for some of the hostages that were in really bad shape medically. And the deal was, okay, they'll provide them if we provide medication, additional medications to the innocent civilians. Well, I saw a videotape of what happened when the medication was delivered. It was Hamas, of course, that took control of it, and then it disappeared. And we never had confirmation from either the French or the Qataris or anyone else for that matter, the Red Cross, for example, that the medication had in fact been delivered to our hostages. Now we know, because of the statements that the two freed hostages have reported, that they never got any medication. They never saw any medication. So it's clear that, once again, you cannot deal with a terrorist organization or its backers, either in the West, like the French, or locally, like the Qataris. The only people you can rely on, well, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and your own forces. So this really has tremendous implications going forward, in the sense that if we cannot now, in good conscience, accept the good offices of any country, whether they're in the West or they're a regional power, because, simply put, they're unreliable. Certainly, there is no European country that could be relied upon to guarantee that Hamas would honor its commitments, and absolutely no local country that could force Hamas to honor its commitments as well. So going forward, this confirmation by these two hostages that have been rescued by our forces just confirms this fact. That we cannot try to negotiate a deal with Hamas on anything and expect it to be honored. And so what that means, in conclusion, is we fight on for victory. And God willing, B'ezrat Hashem, in the course of this war that we're conducting, we'll be able to rescue more hostages and bring them home. But right now, these discussions that are ongoing in Cairo, for example, are an insult to our intelligence. What are we negotiating for with an organization and with local powers that are totally unreliable? The only thing these people understand is brute force. And it would be nice to think that, we could deal with them, but we can't. And we just have an example of this now. Not that we needed it, but for those naysayers who have kept arguing that we just have to deal with Hamas, we just have to accept them as legitimate negotiating partners, it doesn't work. And I haven't really seen anybody writing about the conclusions we should reach about this additional violation of an agreement, both by Hamas and by the guaranteeing powers, France and Qatar. These are, it's self-evident. So I think this is something that a lot of people better think about now who are arguing for rescuing the hostages or doing whatever you can for the hostages at whatever price. It doesn't work. It always misfires. And we just basically facilitated a transfer of massive quantities of medicine to our enemies. So added on top of food and fuel, now we have medicine going straight to the people that are killing our soldiers and who killed our people on October 7th in the Gaza envelope. This is madness. It's madness. And when we have people, good people, patriotic people, going down to the borders, trying to stop the aid convoys going to Hamas.
The so-called humanitarian aid going either to Hamas or to those totally innocent civilians who are holding our hostages, for example.
Right. I would expect that if our government were honest enough, they would allow the people, our people, to block the convoys and to turn around to the Americans in particular and just say, we can't do anything about this. This is freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. This is democracy in action. It's demokratia. That's what it is. You argued during the anti-judicial reform protests that we shouldn't get involved with people's ability, rights, opportunities to express their opposition to government policy in whatever way they deem to be appropriate, even if it caused terrible hardship to the country. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And here we have people protesting peacefully, and we're going to respect their right to protest. Sorry. Well, this may be a little bit too subtle for our betters, presumed betters, that are populating the so-called war cabinet right now. But they're more interested in carrying out the diktats of Edom than they are protecting our rights as an independent country.
When you say Edom, you're referring to the United States.
Correct. It's a major distinction that people better get through their heads. There's no distinction between the United States and Rome and Edom. They don't have our best interests. Many people, Americans might, but the government doesn't.